Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. As we've seen Meghan Markle put out more and more content connected to her children, whether that's the pregnancy video that made the entire world cringe from secondhand embarrassment, or talking about her experiences on podcasts or things like that, or just posting a lot more pictures, it has drawn a lot of attention to the controversies surrounding her kids, her pregnancies, how the children came into the world, the whole thing. Everything she's done has only drawn more speculation and brought the controversies back up about how Meghan and Harry have handled all of this, as well as the rumors that perhaps they used a surrogate for one or both of the children. Now, these rumors started way back when they got pregnant with Archie. So today we're going to take a look back at Archie's birth controversy, because it's not just where the rumors of possible use of a surrogate were born. It's also where Meghan and Harry made some major mistakes that only fueled all of these rumors and issues surrounding their handling of the children, the privacy, all of it. They created a really big mess of Archie's birth, quite frankly, and the pregnancy as well. Because during the pregnancy, there was all these suspicions and these weird things that people were like, wait, what is happening here? And then when Archie was actually born, they played games, and you know what they did? They won stupid prizes. More controversies, more conspiracies, really it's theories, more theories thrown their way, and more fuel and evidence to the theories of surrogacy. And it's all Meghan and Harry's fault for how they handled it and how they conducted themselves during this chunk of time. So we're going to take a look back and do an in-depth examination of this entire time in their lives. After the pregnancy dance video, you guys have been asking for this, and I had thought about doing a video like this a while back. But like I've said before, when it comes to kids, I feel like it's a little bit of a dicey area. But today we're just taking a look at the facts and how the public related to it and how the public responded to what actually happened, what really happened during this time, and what mistakes were made. At the end, we'll talk a little bit more about the theories and whatnot, but for disclaimer purposes, it's all just opinion and conjecture when we get to that segment of today's video. So at the time, Archie Mountbatten Windsor was born May 6, 2019. And this was surrounded by controversy, largely to the unconventional decisions Prince Harry and Meghan Markle made regarding privacy, timing, and public communication. But the problem is that this ended up causing a lot more friction and a lot more issues that unfolded as the years went on. And now it's really hard for Harry and Meghan to get away from them without doing some sort of Hail Mary, bringing forth lots of evidence to just shut all these rumors down, which, as you know, I believe they should have done from the start. And it's never too late, because it's your kids. And it's their story of how they came into the world, and they've put their kids into the public view, Meghan and Harry have, and gave them public titles. So therefore, they have a responsibility to those kids to clear up these types of rumors. But traditionally, royal births like those of Prince William and Princess Catherine's children followed a very clear pattern. Now, it was slightly different than how it went when Prince Charles and Princess Diana announced the birth of William and Harry, but I would say Catherine and William stayed pretty close to that format, if you will, in part because they were having direct heirs. It makes sense for them to follow protocol a little bit more closely. And I don't think when it comes to Meghan and Harry, them not following the exact same protocol is the problem at all. Typically, there is a public announcement when labor begins, and then an announcement upon birth of the child, and then a Photoshop outside the hospital shortly after the birth. And the announcement that labor had begun allowed for crowds to gather to be there for the photo op, for the reveal of the baby, and to see mom and dad happy and healthy there was an important thing. It was kind of iconic. They also put the birth certificate up, which we'll get to in a minute, but this method or format was something that just made the event really happy time, and it allowed people to gather and produce really adorable pictures like this. And it was just iconic is the best word for it. But what Meghan and Harry did instead was they did not announce it when Meghan went into labor, for whatever reason. They kept Archie's birth private for over 8 hours. They did not tell people that he was actually born and arrived until 8 hours later. They also issued a confusing press release suggesting Meghan had just gone into labor after Archie had already been born. So they were playing games here with this. And the result was that the media and the public felt misled because they were misled. Even though, as I said before, like Harry and Meghan not following exact protocol kind of makes sense, you know? Harry and Meghan's children are unlikely to ever get anywhere close to becoming, you know, first, second in the line of succession. So they're not in the same sort of, you know, category when it comes to the level of seriousness around the birth and the heirs to the throne that are, you know, likely, without a doubt, going to be the ones to actually one day become king or queen. So Harry and Meghan making slightly different choices isn't necessarily the problem. I don't think anybody cared that Meghan didn't want to have the baby at a specific hospital or do the photo op immediately after. I don't think people really cared about that too awful much. You'll remember, you know, Princess Eugenie, Princess Beatrice, they did not do what Catherine did. You know what I mean? Because that wouldn't even make sense. So Meghan doing something a little bit more private, a little bit more quiet, taking her time with these things, fine. Where the problem is misleading the press on purpose and the public on purpose. Putting out a press release that isn't clear, that makes it sound like Meghan just went into labor, when really Archie had been born for several hours at that point, is a foolish game to play. And it only diminished credibility and trust, and it honestly made people kind of mad and irritated about the situation, because it's like, well, why would you do that? Why are you lying to people? Why are you trying to mislead people? And naturally, this is only going to end up being fuel for surrogacy rumors. Because why else are you being sort of suspicious and secretive around labor and birth unless you're trying to shuffle out a surrogate and make it look like Meghan gave birth, and you're trying to be weird about this? Then it's going to make people think there's something weird going on. You know the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. So let's look a little closer at these announcements. Archie's birth announcement came in 2 parts. First, they said Meghan is in labor. Then 40 minutes later, they said baby is already here and was born at 2:26 a.m. And so while the palace normally announces labor before the delivery, obviously, they intentionally lied. They purposefully misled the public. And because there was already some rumors and some suspicion, this created huge amounts of distrust, and people theorized and claimed that the couple needed time to stage a story because Meghan didn't actually deliver the children. And so by lying like they did and misleading the press announcements and kind of playing games there, they only opened the door for people to believe even more these rumors of surrogacy. Catherine, Princess of Wales, at the time Duchess of Cambridge, appeared outside the Lindo Wing Hospital hours after giving birth, in heels and smiling and holding her newborns every single time. And it was sort of expected ever since Princess Diana, who kind of made that a super iconic moment and picture. And Catherine looked fabulous each time. These are just such cute moments. A lot of people think, oh my gosh, I would never want to have to do that and stuff. But I think that Catherine understands that people want to know that she's okay. They want to know that the baby's okay. And it was something that people really loved when Diana did it. People were excited about it. And it's a positive thing. It's a celebratory thing. What mom doesn't want to know that people are excited for her child to arrive and to arrive safely? I think that when you look at it from that context of people are just happy about this, and it's a celebratory moment, and it is very brief, I think it doesn't seem as weird as some people think. It's kind of like barbaric or crazy. I believe that Prince William would have totally supported and advocated for Catherine not doing that tradition if she didn't want to. I think that she would have been strong enough to say, I'd really rather wait until the next day if she really didn't want to do it the same day. I don't think there would have been any sort of problems with modernizing it if they really wanted to. I think that for them, they felt that it was fine, that it was a happy occasion, that it was just a moment of time to get out there and take the photo before you go home. Not that big of a deal, you know? Catherine and William have really set a new precedent when it comes to privacy, and so if they didn't want to do it, I have full confidence that they wouldn't. I don't see anything wrong with the photo, especially for Catherine and William's children. But it did raise eyebrows that Meghan basically said she had no interest in doing this photo. Meghan and Harry opted for a private birth believed to be at Portland Hospital in London, and they delayed the photo debut by 2 days. Press and traditionalists criticized this as breaking with royal openness and accused them of controlling the narrative too tightly. Now, this was only compounded by the fact that they did lie about their initial statements of how Archie came to be and when he was born. But I actually see zero issue with Meghan and Harry waiting 2 days to do the photo op and changing the photo op in terms of its dynamic, location, timing, etc., because they're a little bit closer to Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice rather than Princess Catherine and Prince William in terms of status, line of succession, the birth of their children had that wiggle room to do it a little bit differently. But here, Meghan kind of created even more controversy around this particular subject because in Oprah, I think it was in Oprah, but it might have also come up in Netflix, her and Harry's Netflix thing. I covered it in those videos, so I will link those for you up here or at the end of today's video. I'll link those for you at the top of the page if you'd like to go back and look at what exactly she said about the birth of Archie. She claimed that they didn't want to do a photo op right after birth. They didn't offer this to Meghan or bring this up to Meghan. And maybe they didn't. I think that it would have been perfectly reasonable for them to not assume that they would want to do a photo right away, in part because, status is different, but also because Meghan and Harry had already been making huge stinks about privacy and being very difficult to work with. So people were probably like, well, we'll just wait and see what you have to say, and we're not going to put any expectations on you, especially in this moment. People were already afraid of Meghan and Harry at this point in terms of having a working relationship. They had already proved themselves to be very difficult and very paranoid about their privacy. So I don't think it would have made sense or been reasonable for anybody to suggest to Meghan to do a photo op right after giving birth. And then that's all the more bizarre if there was some sort of suspicions of surrogacy going around behind the scenes. So it wouldn't make sense. But she framed this as something very rude and unfair to her, which I disagree with. And she also tried to claim and sort of imply in the Oprah interview that, well, if you're not going to give him a title and make him a prince, and you're not going to give him 24/7 police protection the way Catherine and William's family has, then I'm not going to do the photo op. Those are not her exact words, but that is what she was implying during this segment, during the Oprah interview. So be sure to go check that out for yourself so you can see what you think about that. But that's how I took it and what it sounded like she was trying to say, kind of a tit for tat thing. Being difficult, being toxic, This just fell right in line with that mixed messaging and the mistakes of the announcements as well, because that extra bit of time then kind of changed tone. Having a little bit more time before we get to see the baby, and this coming right on the heels of the fumbled announcements led to even more fuel for those rumors. And because initially what happened was Meghan and Harry didn't tell Buckingham Palace right away. When Buckingham Palace got word, they said, oh, she's in labor. And then Meghan and Harry were like, no, Archie was born at 2:26 a.m. actually. So then Buckingham Palace came out 40 minutes later to say, no, he was born already several hours ago. So Meghan and Harry kind of set Buckingham Palace up to look like they were participating in this manipulation, or that they were withholding information, or that they looked like idiots. So that also added another layer to this scandal. A lot of people think that's something Meghan just wouldn't have passed up. And I can't say I disagree. I do think that she would have jumped on it had it worked out that way. But that does raise some eyebrows for people, or raise their suspicions on what really happened, since she didn't do the photo op, and it seems like something she would have jumped on. Meghan and Harry already had a strained relationship with the British press and just the press in general before the pregnancy, before the birth of Archie. Their attempts to maintain more privacy were perceived as antagonistic because of the way they went about it. And this marked a turning point in the public and the press narrative about Harry and Meghan, sparking accusations of being secretive and manipulative. The surrogacy rumors really started to gain momentum, especially when you compare it to the openness of Prince William and Princess Catherine. It just made the whole thing seem more bizarre. Meghan later claimed in interviews across Netflix and Oprah that Archie was denied a prince title due to institutional decisions, possibly rooted in race. Buckingham Palace's position was that Archie wasn't entitled to a title under current royal protocols, which reserve prince status for grandchildren of the monarch, not great-grandchildren, except for heirs in the direct line. And this created a whole press storm. It sparked further media debate and public confusion about fairness, race, and royal tradition, when in fact the truth is that Archie and Lily, if she had been there by then, were not going to be titled until Queen Elizabeth passed and King Charles became king. At that point, then they became eligible for prince or princess titles. Before then, they simply weren't eligible for it. And Meghan purposefully seemed to manipulate this fact on Oprah and double down on it to make the palace and the royal family look bad. A lot of people theorize that Meghan thought, well, just do it. Just give him a prince title anyway. Do it now. Do it early. Who cares? I can kind of understand her being like, well, why not just do it now and give him a title now? And maybe asking. But if they say no, they say no. I mean, what's waiting a few more years until you can have the title? You know what I mean? Like, why make us think about it and be weird and vindictive? And that's what seemed like was a sticking point for Meghan, where she stopped cooperating when it came to the birth announcements and things like that. And naturally, like a lot of patterns we see in people really high in narcissism, when they're mad, they're doing things, they're trying to get back at people, and then they end up just creating more problems for themselves. It seems like that's what happened here. But because of the misinformation that Meghan put out into the world over the titles, people mistrust her even more. She is not credible. She doesn't know what's happening, and she's lying when she tries to frame it that way. And so that was very pivotal for people to find out just how badly she lied and how much she lied and misconstrued this fact to make it seem so malicious. And it was one of the most sensational claims in her Oprah interview, and they just let it be. Meghan and Harry never came out to correct that, to say, no, we understand that this is not how the law is written and how the protocols are, and we weren't trying to say that this was an ist moment. They could have come out and corrected that after the Oprah interview when they saw how everybody took it and what Meghan really said on tape, but they chose not to. All the more cowardly. So while the majority of the public found this to be irresponsible of Harry and Meghan, sort of antagonistic, purposefully difficult, unnecessarily secretive and weird about the whole thing, some people thought, well, they're just trying to be more private, they're just trying to do things their own way. But the fact of the matter is that they could have done things their own way, and they could have prioritized privacy in a way that they felt comfortable with, and changed how they approached the birth of their children without purposefully lying and withholding information on purpose. Like, either don't tell anybody anything or tell people the truth. Don't fabricate a story and then change it and lie. Straight up lie that she's in labor when Archie's already been born for several hours. Don't do that, because that is not okay. That's just straight up not okay, and it's going to color how people see you forever. Also, critics saw this as really hypocritical, wanting royal privilege, like wanting the title right away, wanting all of the extra nice things without the responsibility of being open and honest with the public while you're holding titles and wanting titles for your children about the truth of the matter and about, the birth of the child. Because like I said, even if they would have just had honest announcements and waited a few days to do a photo op, I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. There was also issues after the birth with the birth certificate. And this is something that people point to as more evidence to support a surrogacy rumor as well. So Prince Louis, Prince George, and Princess Charlotte all had their birth certificates publicly shared with 0 changes, signatures from the doctors, posted, I think it was outside the gates of the palace once they were ready. As soon as the documents were ready, they were posted there. And they never had been changed. No changes, no amendments, posted there for all to see with the father, mother, and child's full names perfectly on there, the signatures all on there. As I said, the signatures are an important detail. Meghan and Harry, for Archie, eventually posted a birth certificate. It was delayed a little bit. And then it was amended 3 weeks later, which of course sparked tons of speculation. So let's take just a quick look, a little bit closer at William and Harry's firstborns and the differences of how they were announced, okay? Prince George, born in 2013, was born at 4:24 p.m. and it was announced that he had been born at 8:30 p.m. William and Catherine appeared outside the Lindo wing the next morning, makes sense, waving to a large press crowd. Prince Archie, born 2019, was born at 5:26 a.m. Oh, I thought it was 2:26 a.m. Whatever. There's differing accounts. That's the problem. Some documents say 2:26, some say 5:26. So, excuse me, whichever is correct. I apologize. After he was already born, several hours later, they announced that labor had just begun, and a few minutes later announced, no, actually, JK, he's already here and he's been here. They also initially announced it on Instagram and then an official statement, which added another layer of confusion, almost like Meghan went rogue for a second there. And then a couple of days later, Meghan and Harry debuted Archie inside Windsor Castle's St. George's Hall with a single reporter present to get pictures. And this is just like a perfect example of how people view Catherine and William so much different from Meghan and Harry, in part because of the trust that is established. William and Catherine come across as transparent and traditional, open to the media, with timely announcements, and they followed royal precedent, so respecting the position and privilege that they are in. Meghan and Harry were more private, more controlled. There was selective access, a delayed, confusing timeline. They rewrote the playbook, but they also broke trust with the public and did not respect the position that they were in and the privilege that they are in. Even the announcements had different wording and felt different. Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cambridge, has been admitted to St. Mary's Hospital, Paddington, London, in the early stages of labor. And then Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Cambridge, was safely delivered of a son at 4:24 p.m. The baby weighs 8 pounds 6 ounces. The Duke of Cambridge was present for the birth. A formal notice of the birth will be posted on the forecourt of Buckingham Palace. For Archie, though, the Queen and the royal family are delighted at the news that Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex, no longer HRH, was safely delivered of a son at 5:26 a.m. today. She and her child are both doing well. So back to the tradition of putting out a framed bulletin or a gilded easel outside Buckingham Palace after royal births has been going on since 1837, so it's a cool tradition. And George, Charlotte, and Louis' easels listed the doctors' names with signatures, birth weight, and time, and referenced the royal family. But Archie's, notably, only included mention of the Queen and the royal family in the wording, but not on the actual document. And then they omitted the signatures from the doctor's presence, unlike previous notices. So there were no doctor's signatures at all, which led a lot of people to believe that the doctor refused to sign it with Meghan's name as the parent, as the mother, because a surrogate was involved. That is the rumor, that is the belief that people say, well, of course the doctor didn't sign it because the doctor delivered Archie from someone else. And so they aren't willing to put their signature to this document that says Meghan is the birth mother. So of course a doctor wouldn't want to sign something that's trying to say that Meghan is the birth mother if really there was a surrogate birthing the baby, you know? So a lot of people point to that as a very suspicious element to this. What do you think? When they amended Archie's birth certificate, it initially had said Rachel Meghan Markle because that's her birth name, that's her legal name. But they replaced it with her title, which a lot of people thought was pretentious and weird, especially with how Meghan and Harry had been behaving. And this change was made about 11 days after his birth, and it also changed Prince Harry's title to Prince before his first name instead of just Harry. So Archie's birth was officially recorded 11 days after his birth. At that time, his mother's name was registered as Rachel Meghan, Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Sussex. Later on June 5, a revision was made to the birth records. The mother's name was changed to just HRH, the Duchess of Sussex, effectively removing both of her first names. And Harry's name was also altered. Originally, it was HRH Henry Charles Albert David Duke of Sussex, but the word Prince was added before his first name. The possible reasons behind these changes have been speculated about. Some believe it was a way for Harry to acknowledge Meghan's royal status and place her on equal footing with his late mother, Princess Diana. Others suggest it could be a deliberate snub towards the Prince and Princess of Wales, as their children's birth certificates still include their names. I think it's just more indication that Harry and mostly Meghan, it seems, are actually really obsessed with the titles. Meghan and Harry care a lot about those titles, and they say that they don't, but they clearly do. So what do you think about this whole thing? A lot of people think the birth certificate not having signatures and being changed, altered, was a version of it being scrubbed to hide a surrogate, or alludes to some sort of tomfoolery going on, something suspicious. I think no matter what theory you believe, possible surrogate or Meghan carrying her children, no matter which theory you think is true, the fact that they were not honest about the labor and delivery, that alone is hugely problematic and has set everything else into motion of being weird. And then, of course, being so obsessed with the titles that you have the birth certificate changed later is only going to fuel all of that. So these mistakes really could have been avoided, and this whole thing could have been handled better. It felt very short-sighted the way Meghan and Harry handled all of this, but I'm very excited to hear what you think about this drama and controversy surrounding Archie's birth. Leave all your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for joining me for today's video. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!